The room went silent the moment the glass tipped and red wine spread across the pale silk dress. Laughter hung in the air, sharp and uncomfortable. A young woman's voice cut through it all, loud and mocking, while the woman standing there didn't move, didn't flinch, just slowly lifted her eyes and smiled in a way that made several people suddenly uneasy. Before we go any further, if stories about unexpected kindness and quiet strength move you, take a second to subscribe to Kindness Tales. Like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments as we go along. These stories grow richer when we experience them together. The gala was one of those events people talked about for weeks afterward. A glass-walled ballroom overlooking downtown Chicago, chandeliers glowing like constellations, soft jazz floating through the room. Invitations were limited, the guest list carefully curated. It was the kind of night where every handshake had an angle and every smile came with a resume. Among the crowd stood a woman named Renee, holding a small clutch and a calm posture that made her seem almost out of place. She wasn't wearing anything flashy. Her dress was elegant but simple, navy blue, tailored perfectly but without a designer logo screaming for attention. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her makeup understated. She looked like someone who belonged anywhere, yet didn't need to prove it. Renee hadn't come for networking. She'd come because she'd been invited by a nonprofit she quietly supported, one that helped families stay in their homes when medical bills threatened to take everything. She believed in showing up for causes that mattered, even when no one knew her name. Across the room, a young woman named Vanessa was holding court near the champagne table. She was the daughter of one of the city's most talked-about billionaires, and she carried that fact like a badge. Her laugh was loud, her gestures wide, her dress dramatic and expensive in a way that demanded attention. People leaned in when she spoke, not because she was saying anything profound, but because of who her last name was. Vanessa had grown up surrounded by wealth, but also by whispers about it. Old money families who never quite accepted her, business rivals who smiled to her father's face and criticized him behind closed doors. She'd learned early that dominance came from being louder, sharper, quicker to belittle before anyone could do it to her. She noticed Renee almost immediately. Not because Renee stood out, but because she didn't try to. Vanessa's eyes skimmed over the room and landed on the navy dress, the lack of jewels, the quiet confidence. Something about it irritated her. When Renee stepped closer to the bar to order sparkling water, Vanessa shifted too, pretending not to notice the narrowing of space between them. As the bartender turned away, Vanessa gestured animatedly while telling a story, her elbow knocking a full glass of red wine straight into Renee's chest. The spill was dramatic. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered an apology on Vanessa's behalf, already embarrassed. Renee looked down at the spreading stain, then back up, her expression unreadable. Vanessa laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A sharp one. She said something about how some people really shouldn't wear light colors to events like this, her tone dripping with superiority. She added a comment about knowing the dress probably wasn't worth much anyway. The air thickened. People looked away. A few stared, frozen, waiting to see what Renee would do. Renee took a slow breath. She dabbed the dress gently with a napkin offered by a nearby server and said, evenly, that accidents happen. Her voice was steady, almost soothing. She thanked the server and turned as if to step away. That should have been the end of it. But Vanessa wasn't done. She made a remark about how galas were getting less exclusive these days, how anyone could slip in if they knew the right charity. She looked directly at Renee as she said it. Renee paused. She turned back, meeting Vanessa's eyes. There was no anger there. Just curiosity. She smiled softly and said she hoped Vanessa was enjoying the evening. The smile unsettled Vanessa more than any insult could have. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and turned back to her group, already recounting the incident as if it were a joke. Renee moved to the edge of the room and stood by the windows, looking out at the city lights. Inside, she felt the familiar ache that came with moments like this. She'd faced them her whole life. Not always so openly cruel, but always there, lurking behind assumptions and sideways glances. She remembered being a young girl in a small Indiana town, watching her mother work double shifts as a nurse while still finding time to help neighbors with groceries or rides to appointments. Her mother used to say that dignity wasn't something anyone could give or take. It was something you carried, no matter what. Renee carried it with her when she earned her degree in finance, when she worked her way up in real estate, when she started buying small apartment buildings no one else wanted. She carried it when banks hesitated and when contractors underestimated her. She built her portfolio quietly, steadily, focusing on long-term stability rather than quick profit. She believed housing was about more than returns. It was about safety. About kids having the same bedroom long enough to mark their height on the wall. About elders not having to choose between rent and medication. At the gala, a man from the nonprofit approached Renee, concern etched on his face. He apologized for what had happened and offered to get her a new dress or call her a car. Renee thanked him but declined. She said she was fine and asked about a family they'd discussed earlier, one facing eviction after a sudden illness. The man blinked, surprised by the shift, then answered. Across the room, Vanessa noticed. She noticed that people weren't laughing anymore. She noticed a few glances in Renee's direction that held respect, even warmth. It irritated her further. Later in the evening, Vanessa's father arrived. He was older, quieter than his reputation suggested, and carried himself with the exhaustion of someone who'd fought too many battles. He greeted donors and board members, thanking them sincerely. When he reached the nonprofit director, the man spoke enthusiastically about Renee, about her consistent support, about the properties she'd provided at reduced rates so families could stay housed. He mentioned that several buildings in the city owed their stability to her careful management. Vanessa's father frowned slightly, intrigued. He asked to be introduced. When Renee turned to greet him, recognition flickered across his face. Not from tabloids or galas, but from meetings and paperwork. He knew her company. He knew her reputation. He knew the address of one particular downtown building his firm leased several floors from. Their building. They spoke politely, two professionals discussing community initiatives and housing challenges. Renee listened more than she talked. She asked thoughtful questions. She never mentioned the earlier incident. Vanessa drifted closer, curious. She heard her father mention their office building, heard Renee respond with familiarity about recent maintenance upgrades and tenant feedback. Confusion crossed Vanessa's face, followed by something like dread. The realization settled slowly, painfully. The woman she'd mocked wasn't just another guest. She wasn't someone trying to belong. She was someone who owned more than Vanessa had ever considered. Vanessa felt heat rise to her cheeks. She waited for a public reckoning, for a sharp comment, for embarrassment to be returned in equal measure. It never came. Instead, Renee excused herself gently, saying it had been a long day. Before leaving, she approached Vanessa. Her voice was low, meant only for them. She said she hoped Vanessa would remember that rooms like this were full of people with stories you couldn't see. She said kindness cost nothing, but cruelty always came with a bill. Then she wished her a good night. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa couldn't shake the moment. It replayed in her mind at odd times, during meetings, during brunches, during late nights scrolling on her phone. She found herself thinking about that calm smile, that refusal to strike back. She asked her father more about Renee. He told her about the buildings, the tenants, the way Renee insisted on fair leases and community investment. He told her that real power often moved quietly. Months later, Vanessa reached out to the nonprofit. She made a donation, then another. Eventually, she asked to volunteer, not for publicity, but to understand. She and Renee crossed paths again at a community event, not a gala. Folding chairs. Coffee in paper cups. Kids running between tables. Vanessa apologized. Not with excuses, not with explanations. Just an acknowledgement of harm and a promise to do better. Renee accepted it with grace, not because Vanessa deserved it, but because forgiveness aligned with who Renee chose to be. The impact rippled outward. Vanessa changed the way she spoke, the way she listened. Renee continued her work, housing families, supporting causes, showing up without fanfare. And somewhere in the city, in apartments filled with laughter and late-night homework and quiet relief, the effects of that night continued to unfold. Kindness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it stands still while the world tries to push it down, and in doing so, it teaches more than any confrontation ever could. Renee's choice to respond with dignity didn't just protect her own peace, it opened a door for someone else to grow. Moments like these remind us that we never truly know who we're standing next to, or what they carry, or how much good they've already put into the world. A little humility, a little compassion, can change the direction of more than one life. If this story moved you, let it be a reminder to lead with kindness, especially when it's hardest. And if you've witnessed or experienced a moment where compassion made all the difference, share it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear.